Hello, I'm Pastor Dan Loomis with today's devotion from New Philadelphia First United Methodist Church, coming from Exodus 5. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." That same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and overseers in charge of the people: "You are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw, but require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota." I earned my bachelor's degree at a secular university, and while I was there, I remember sitting in history class one day when the professor was lecturing and began to talk about Christianity, pretty much mocking our faith. He couldn't fathom joining a faith where people have such a Pollyanna view of life, he said, as to believe that it would become a cakewalk down Easy Street just by saying that we would follow this Jesus. And I remember thinking, you've got to be kidding me. Nowhere in Scripture, nowhere in any juncture of church history are we led to believe that when you serve the Lord, life is somehow guaranteed to be easy. There wouldn't be any such thing as persecution or martyrdom if God protected all of his servants from difficulty. Reality is, when you begin to serve the Lord, you're signing on to something very different. More often than not, things don't become easier, don't go more smoothly in your life. Things get more difficult. When Moses began to obey God's calling, things didn't get a lot better for Moses. They got a lot worse. Moses and Aaron were coming off pretty much of a spiritual high when they marched boldly into Pharaoh's presence, demanding that Pharaoh let God's people go. And I like to say, immediately they hit a brick wall. As a result, Pharaoh ordered Hebrew slaves to gather their own straw and to make bricks, with no drop in their quota. And if quotas weren't met, Hebrew overseers, their Hebrew foremen, were the ones to be punished. And then things went from bad to worse. Pharaoh ordered bricks to be made with no straw at all. I remember just after 2 years of being in ministry, I was pretty much ready to call it quits, go back to my secular job. Such were the difficulties I ran into. I won't bore you with details, but that experience led me to some pretty serious introspection. I ended up asking myself the biblical question posed to Moses. Ironically, it's a question that came from Pharaoh. Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice? Isn't this the question all of us are going to need to answer, especially when we run into difficulty? I also learned that difficult times are really preparation for what life is going to bring us. Making bricks with or without straw is pretty tough, but perhaps this was preparation for the Hebrews for 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. I don't want you to think that serving the Lord is always difficult. Sometimes there's joy, sometimes there's blessing, but sometimes serving the Lord can be difficult. God never promised us it wouldn't be, but he did promise to walk with us through the difficulty. God sent me, back in those days, another pastor who became a lifelong friend, and he sent my district superintendent, whose wisdom and grace guided me through that difficult time. Would you pray with me? Lord, thank you for the difficult times of our past. We see how you prepared us for facing other tough times. More than that, we thank you for walking with us through past experiencing, knowing that you will always be with us. Amen.